This is Long Shots, VSiN's premier golf betting podcast. Here's Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, and Kelly Bidlin.
Hey, it is Long Shots Golf Betting Podcast here on the Matt Brown, Wes Reynolds, Kelly Bidlin coming to you for the Cognizant Classicl as we get into the Florida swing over on the PGA Tour. Before we get things going here, let's just get all the terribleness behind us. Wes was close. I had 8 outrights, all of which made the cut, and none of them competed, so that's great. How do you have 8 outrights all make the cut and none of them actually compete? Like, what in the holy hell is going on with all of that?
We sort of had Alex Smalley. Smalley was sort of there for a minute.
Ball clanks off a tree. It was game over. Wes was going to cash another outright, and instead the world cries. I mean, Potgieter ended up being wildly popular. I don't know if y'all saw this. By the time it went off, he was 30-1 at one of the books.
Are you
like
serious?
He got bet down all the way to 30-1 at one of the books out there. So a guy that seemed like everybody in the industry ended up having a ticket on, and unfortunately, like I said, if you played golf, you know how this goes. Sometimes that ball hits a tree and just shoots 90 more feet into the woods. Sometimes it hits the tree and bounces back over the cart path into the rough. And
Bro, it
yeah,
hit
that's
the
how
cart
that goes.
path to get the extra kick even further out. Like, it could have ended up like nestled around the cart path or something. But no, it was trunk, clank cement, and then like plenty of perfect room to hit that shot from.
But
Sorry, Wes, man, that was brutal.
But here's the thing. We always talk about this. At least if you have a guy with a big number, at least get it down to 2 people and you can monetize the ticket. And thank God it at least went to playoff and you were able to get some money in.
Yeah, and what you're mentioning, of course, Aldrich Potgieter, who ended up becoming very popular and for good reason, because we talked about on Long Shots last week how driving distance is going to matter. Wide fairways, grip it and rip it. And nobody does that better on the PGA Tour than Aldrich Potgieter. He is number 1 in driving distance, by the way, even ahead of Rory McIlroy. He was number 1, by the way, for driving distance in the Mexico Open last weekend down at Vedanta Vallarta. Also was number 1 in strokes gained putting. So usually that's a pretty deadly combination to win this event. Best putter and the best driver of the golf ball in the field. But he was not the best iron player, and that showed on Sunday. Yeah. He hit some really bad shots. Might have got some bad clubs or bad yardages from his caddy. I don't know who was to blame there, but somebody was. Maybe a combination of both. And I did, had to have some Brian Campbell once it became clear that it was going to be 2 guys, and Isaiah Salinda, who had posted 19 under, was not going to make the playoff and was going to settle for 3rd. And, but I still thought Potgieter was going to win just because, okay, you're playing this par 5 18th. And he's out driving Brian Campbell by about 50 yards on average because Potgieter, I mentioned he was number 1. Going into last week, Brian Campbell, 182 out of 182. In driving distance for those that had enough qualified rounds so far in the 2025 PGA Tour season. So you're like, okay, man, he's still a favorite. Even though the odds aren't indicating that, he should still get this done because he's, Campbell's going to have to hit a big, long second shot to make the green. And what you mentioned, Matt, bounces off a tree. Mm-hmm. And because that's going out of bounds. You could see on the trajectory that is going out of bounds and it's over. Potgieter's just got to be conservative and just get it up there and make a 5, and he's going to win the thing. But Potgieter, did not get it done at the end, and he's a young player. He's 20 years old, British amateur champion from a couple years ago. We saw this actually at the Nedbank Golf Challenge in South Africa on the DP World Tour late in 2024. Just not used to winning at this level. But ironically enough, it's a guy that never won on the PGA Tour, Brian Campbell. Never even had a top 10, by the way, did Brian Campbell. He's been a journeyman. Been grinding on the Korn Ferry Tour since 2018. He has card in 2017, lost it immediately. So he's been grinding for like 7 years to get back out on the PGA Tour. So it's a great story. Doesn't help me cashing Potgieter, but I mentioned it on a numbers game with Kelly Bidlin and Gil Alexander on Monday. I got lucky with Nick Taylor at the Sony. I got lucky. So I didn't get lucky on Sunday. So 1-1 in playoffs, you'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kelly, it's a deal too. Like we said, I know there's a lot of people that are, team no hedge and all they try to like brag about all of that or whatever. I will say this till I'm blue in the face. If you are betting golf on a week-to-week basis, if you're not getting hedge bets in, if you're not getting stuff in, I personally think you're doing it wrong, because one person wins a golf tournament. There's only one guy at the end that gets to hoist the trophy and take home the big fake check. And so if you think you're going to pick one guy out of 156 and 126 and one out of 80 on a super regular basis, then by all means you should quit your day job and you should just bet golf for a living. And like, fortunately, like I said, for Wes, it did make me feel good that got down to a head-to-head, because at least that way you know that you can monetize your ticket, which is always good. But
yeah,
just a big bummer of a break for everybody out there. But you got to be paying attention. If you got one of these tickets, you got to be able to go in and make sure you don't come out empty-handed.
Yeah, I think I think all three of us probably have different strategies when it comes to hedging, even in golf, and like you said, everybody has different strategies. That, and I think if you're doing it regularly, you should kind of have your own personal strategy of how you usually handle things. We often bring it up here that we're fortunate to live in Nevada, be able to bet with Circa, and they post those yes/no prices overnight. So those have bailed us, all three of us, out at multiple times. Yes. I know.
That's why I was actually waiting on this one, because Pot Geeter overnight was about 130 or minus 130, 132. I was like, well, I want to get a little bit more. I didn't end up getting much more, because the best I got was Campbell plus 125 with just a hole left to play, when he looked like he was in a little trouble on 18, and that's when I got in. I'm like, okay, it's going to be a two-guy tournament. If I give some back, I give some back. But yeah, the yes-no is probably the best way, especially when you got a condensed leaderboard. And you don't want to bet, okay, I bet this guy and this guy, but I didn't have this guy, and this guy ends up winning. So yeah, the yes-no is the best way to go long term.
Yeah, I mean, they help us. I mean, it's usually I'm playing those, or I'm playing once we get into a playoff. I don't know. Other than that, it's very situational of how I might get involved hedging. But I think it's, we've said it before. I've said it a million times. I think if you're doing this week to week, like we are, it becomes far more important. If you're betting a tournament once a month or once every couple months, fine. Yeah, let it ride a little bit more. But when we're, judging by what we're making at the end of a season, that stuff becomes a little bit more important, I think, to lock in profit when you can.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's very well said. And again, for me, at the end of the day, I as much money as I'm putting in an outlay each week into these tournaments, it would be stupid of me to leave empty-handed if I have an opportunity not to, right? Like, because if that's the case, if I continue to do that, then you're gonna have losing seasons. Like, you're just going to lose. Like, you have to be able to take some of that money, and this doesn't mean make it to where you're not maximizing hitting these good outrights and these good outright tickets, but it certainly means, like, if you can at least just hedge off to where you can't have a losing week, right? Like, at least, like, you're going to make your money back no matter what. And, like, if you can tread water and between hitting the outrights, then hey, that's fine too. So, unfortunate for us, but hey, again, I'm pretty proud of what we did on the pod this past week. Obviously, Pot Geeter right there. Like I said, I played 8 outrights, all 8 make the cut. I mean, like, so there was at least 8 different guys that could have possibly cash some tickets for us and stuff like that along the way. So, we're not going to win them all every week, but if we can get guys that are in contention, that's a pretty good week in my opinion.
I didn't. None of my outrights missed the cut either. But yeah,
same here.
None of them stood. Yeah, so yeah, all of us got through.
Yeah, so it's we're just not gonna. You can't win them all.
like you said, the only guy I had remotely close at the end was Smalley. But yeah,
we're not gonna win them all. We're not gonna win them all. So it just kind of is what it is. So it is off over here to the Florida swing. So here we go into the Cognizant Classic. Don't call it the Honda. And Wes, historically, one of the most difficult courses on tour, which is why we have not really ever seen a super star-studded field in this of recent, because people don't want to go out there and clunk their way around. That said, they have made a few changes to the course to make it a little bit more playable, a little bit easier for these dudes, but still, when you look at the odds board here, it is not star-studded. Whenever you see that the top of the odds board is Russell Henley and Shane Lowry and Sung J M.
Yeah, this is a good field, but not a great field in terms of elite company, like you mentioned. And Matt, you mentioned this is usually one of the more difficult courses on the PGA Tour. It was not necessarily last year, because they did change this to a par 71. because they changed the 10th hole to a par 5. So the scoring average being a par 71 was almost a stroke under par. So, still not easy, but only played 15th most difficult. I think Austin Eckroat was your winner at 17 under 263. That was the lowest score since they ever moved to PGA National. So when I was doing some research on this, the breakdown is still roughly the same, but I just don't know how much more difficult it's going to play. They did narrow the fairways a little bit. They did narrow that. We know that there's a ton of water. I think there's 26 water hazards. It's on play of 15 of 18 holes. Most water balls of any course on the PGA Tour. So it should play hard, especially if you do get some wind. Now, you've had a lot of rain down there in Florida, so you may get like some soft conditions. So I don't know how this is going to play. I don't think it's going to play single digits under par like when Sungjae or Keith Mitchell or Justin Thomas, Adam Scott won in the late 2010s and then in 2020. But I don't know if we're going to see 17 under. I think that's probably a big ask to reach that with these fairways being narrowed.
Kelly, anything that you noticed as you were doing your research?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is, I noticed this picture that I found, and this is me from the Honda Classic at 20.
The home game.
Look at that jacket, bro. Look at that jacket.
Is that real leather?
Oh, that's a fucking leather jacket, man. Yeah,
Wow. Oh, yeah. Look at you.
Is
that
great.
leather with a pullover underneath?
Underneath, yeah. With the great Ken LaPicca, the voice of the FAU.
I was going to ask if that was Ken, actually,
That was Ken. That's
who
Ken.
joined us on many shows, the voice of Florida Atlantic University. Of course, this place right in between, you can be the exact geographer here, Kelly, but isn't it like smack dab in the middle between like Jupiter and West Palm?
Yeah, a little bit closer to Jupiter. You're really right,
Okay.
just down the road, Palm Beach Gardens. The one I always question every year whenever I see stats on the course, Wes, is they always say like 7 miles away from the ocean. I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's further than that. Like it is a solid 20-minute drive before you're getting close.
Then
to
you wouldn't
ocean.
need water hazards on 15 holes if it was that close.
Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you though, I was down there for, I don't know, was it 8 consecutive Honda Classics back in the day when I was working down there. I think the one thing that every single year, once you got out there, that was just a little shocking, and at some point over the course of the 4 days, you were like, whoa, and it's the wind. It is the wind, and it's not so much of that you're right by the water. It's that it's so cleared out the entire property, and there's not a ton of trees. There's not a lot of building coverage and blockage, and it's a little bit more of a wide open parkland course. And at some point, you always think, man, this wind is blowing. Like it feels way stronger than when I was just at my place 5 miles away 10 minutes ago. Like it's one thing combined with all the water danger that these guys face. It's part of what makes it really tricky. And you brought up the rain, Wes. I know there was a lot of rain last year before the tournament. It made the scoring conditions a little easier. But even when we get the kind of regular South Florida rain come through there, what that wind does a lot of times is dry out these greens. So I think you get really unpredictable greens conditions and just kind of scoring conditions throughout the weekend because of how much they can change, depending on how much rain you get, how little you get, combined with high winds.
That is, this is a guy that obviously has been on the ground there. This is why you watch the video version, so you can see what Kelly Bidlin looked like. What was that? How long ago? 10 years ago? 12 years ago?
13 years ago.
13 years ago. The hair hasn't changed much.
You want it again? Hold on, I'll bring it up.
The hair hasn't changed much. You got the beard and the stash has changed. You had the goatee going on there.
You have the goatee going on. Yep.
You kind of look like Wes. This is something. He kind of looks like a professional wrestler right there, right? Like he kind of looks like a professional wrestler right there.
Kelly Bidlin now can fight at cruiserweight.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
Great job.
Yeah,
Kelly.
this is Bam Bam Bidlin right there, and like Kelly's like, that's Bam Bam Bidlin, and like Kelly's no longer that for sure.
I was told by a former coworker that we looked like Evan Cohen, who you could find on ESPN and doing the morning radio show there. He told us that I looked like a Dom protecting Nick Sirianni out there for the Eagles. It looked like the pre-story, pre-biography of that those two coming together. And I was like, wow, yeah, that kind of does.
You're like, sure,
Fair.
I'll take that.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. Yeah.
Now he just keeps the autograph hounds away from Gil Alexander and all the other VSiN personnel.
That's right. I was protecting Ken then. Now I'm protecting Gil now. You're right.
It's so incredibly good. All right, so let's get into the modeling stuff that we've got going on here, guys. Of course, you're going to stick around. We've got our outright plays. We've got our placement market plays. It's stuff you're going to want to put into your account, so don't go anywhere for that. Kelly, it's a deal where I think that there's multiple ways to go about this, which is why I'm very curious as to how you guys went about this in building a model this week, because do you care about distance? Do you not care about distance? Do you care about accuracy? Do you not care about accuracy? Are you just chalking it up that come hell or high water, somebody's going to hit it? Come hell or high water. Someone's just going to hit it in the water, and it's going to change the way it's going to be. So, I mean, again, I think a lot of this is very interesting this week with the modeling and how this is all going to go. And do you embrace variance? Do you not embrace variance, and all of that? So go ahead, and I'm very curious.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think super approach heavy course. We talk about that often, but super important on the second shot course here. And look, scrambling usually comes into play heavily here too. You're usually playing a lot from off the green. If you're hitting into the water, you're dropping. You're scrambling from all over the golf course. So that's important. I think what I find really interesting every year, because we've seen different ways to get it done here, is off the tee stuff. And it's, look, we rarely deal with tournaments like this, and it makes it so fun for me to talk about this tournament every year, not only just having covered it, but I love handicapping this event, because the off the tee, what the data will tell you is, okay, most important thing, keep it out of the water. Second most important thing is distance, when you can, because a lot of times you're clubbing down. So distance helps you when you can bust out driver, but a lot of times you're forced to club down. And yes, you need to be accurate because you have to attack these tricky pin positions that are up on the green. However, also the rough is usually all not that penal. So I think you can pull a lot of different data of off the tee numbers and what we're looking for guys doing with the driver and find different results. So I usually do plug in a little bit of distance. I do like that. I think all of that helps the better, especially if wind gets crazy. We talk about those more lofted clubs, easier into the greens all the time. I think that does help, but you have to keep in mind they will be clubbing down fairly often. So it's tough to say because you don't know who all is going to do it, and this is definitely a course I lean on more history with than a lot. But biggest thing is just keep it out of the damn water. I mean, it really is.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of variance, no doubt about it. Wes, what was the foundation outside of approach for your model? Did you care at all about stuff off the tee, driving distance, or anything like that? Did you focus, okay, obviously we're a lot on approach, but what was like the next biggest thing that was of importance to you?
It was a little bit different for me from an off-the-tee standpoint. Approach was where I think you start the baseline. You could work proximity buckets, but you don't hit a lot of wedges here. A lot of them are middle to longer irons, 150 to 200. That's obviously a wide range. So what Kelly was talking about, keep it out of the water, that's absolutely right. The greens are really big here, by the way, about 7,000 square feet on average. So that's 10th largest. Average speed on the stimp, 12. Greens may be softened because they've had the rain, but you get a lot of forced, I don't want to call them layups, but you get a lot of less than driver on this course. You're not necessarily bombing it like you were last week down in Mexico because you have a lot of dog legs, a lot of the water hazards. You have maybe one of the toughest three-hole stretches in golf. So we got to mention it, the Bear Trap, holes 15 through 17, the two par threes that sandwich that dogleg par 4 that's just over 430. And then you've got water on 18. So look, you want to get even par. You'll take pars all 4 days there at 18, even though it's a par 5, especially on the weekend, because we've seen guys go in the water and really cost themselves. But from, I guess, a modeling standpoint, approach is where I went. I went general, just strokes gained off the tee, and I know sometimes that can have a little bit of a distance bias, but it's not as biased as just taking distance per se. So you get guys that gained off the tee that you would look at and are not necessarily bombers. Like you look at this week, obviously a guy like Toasty or Jesper Svensson, like these guys, Rico Hoey, are like huge bombers. But then you get to guys like the Adam Shanks and the Bud Collies that are gaining more with accuracy than they are necessarily with distance. So strokes gained off the tee is what I went with. And then scrambling, as Kelly mentioned, very important. You're going to miss the greens. Even though these are big greens, you're going to miss them about 40% of the time. So you're going to have to chip out of those short grasses around the greens. You're going to scramble to save pars, even bogeys at times here. So I thought scrambling was important. And then bogey avoidance, just mentioned that. You're going to have bogeys or worse lurk all over. But at the bear trap, notably, too, because 15, 16, 17, just hard. And they've got those pins tucked on those two par threes in the bear trap, so they're hard to get to. So you'll take par on those courses. If you make a birdie, that's like making an eagle, especially when you get to the weekend. Strokes gained, difficult scoring conditions, because I think even though it played easier than ever last year, could be a different setup with the fairways being narrowed. I did use a little bit of putting because it is Bermuda, and these guys have been on POA and Paspalum for the past couple weeks, so different grains. So, sometimes even though they putt on these most commonly throughout the year, most of them live in Florida, you still got to get used to it. So 3-putt avoidance I also put in because these are big greens. So you're going to have these iron shots that are like, you land it and you're checking your PGA Tour app or however you monitor the tournament in play, and it's like 45.2 feet away from the hole. So inevitably, you might hit a bad putt and you're 12 feet away. So you got to avoid those 3 putts. So I felt that was something that needed to be looked at. And then I did a comp course history, which I sometimes like to do. And Kelly mentioned it, how course history, I think, at this course, probably more important than most weeks. Because guys that have played well here, because guys that have not played here, you got to embrace the grind of this place a little bit, because it will eat you alive. And there's a reason why there's a lot of premier players that are taking this week off and maybe either taking a vacation or playing TGL this week instead of playing at PGA National. But the correlated courses I looked at were all the Florida ones on the tour: Bay Hill, Innisbrook, which is the Copperhead course for the Valspar, Concession, where they played a couple years ago, the Nicklaus design during COVID, TPC Sawgrass, where the Players is, and then added a couple other different ones, Quail Hollow, just because it's the Tom and George Fazio design, Colonial and Southwind, which are shorter par 70s and par 71s. And then what's been a strong correlation, you wouldn't think so, it's another short par 70, is Waialae. Because you've had, I think, like 4 guys that have won, if I recall, at Waialae and also at PGA National for this Honda Classic / Cognizant Classic since it moved in 2007. Kuchar, Justin Thomas, Russell Henley, and Mark Wilson have won both events. And then Chris Kirk, who won this in a playoff a couple of years ago, broke our heart because we both had Eric Cole, I think, Matt.
Yes.
And I had Kirk.
You had Kirk. That's right. That's right.
About that event. Yeah.
That's right. And remember, Kirk was the runner-up that year at the Sony. So you've got some correlation with the Sony Open and the Cognizant Classic, I think. So, that's where I took a composite history. I used our shout out our guys, Fantasy National, and I used just total strokes gained on those composite of the courses that I listed.
Do you guys think that there is a, air quote, type of golfer that is going to win this? Do you think you need to be highly pedigreed, or are you perfectly fine? Like last week, I said, I'm okay playing triple digits because I think anybody, again, every one of those guys, and it played out, right? Look how many of those guys that we had made the cut and were at least at some point somewhere along the way in the mix, right?
Yeah.
Do you think long shots have a chance in this one, or did you focus in a specific type of area whenever you were building your card?
Well, I'll go first here, Wes. I would say
not to like give your plays away, but just in general, as people are trying to kind of like figure out what is the prototypical type of golfer that we're looking at here.
Yeah, look, just like any other tournament, I think you got guys that are a little bit better class players that we think have a little bit more win equity than the rest of the field, and their odds are what they are because of that. Having said that, when you have this much water on any course and scores can so wildly swing, and it's a tough course, right? It's a tough course. You're going to have more condensed scoring at the top of the leaderboard, and a couple bad shots or a couple great shots can wildly swing the leaderboard. Look, of course it brings more long shots, I think, into play, and we've seen that in past results. You usually get really, really class players winning here, or it's longer shots down the board, and it's the water, wind, bad conditions that usually have something to do with that. I won't jump to my plays yet, but honestly, I did end up leaning towards more towards some of the class guys with a little bit more experience here this week. But that wasn't by design. I just couldn't pass up what I was seeing with them.
And to the premise of your question, Matt, it usually, when you look at the history, and usually I go back about a dozen to 15 years when I put that on my column, which is now up at VSiN.com, I list the winners and then what their prices were, what their scores were. And if you look, you've gotten mostly class players at the top of the market that were shorter price guys, or you've gotten long shots. I've give you an example. Rory won this one year at 9-1. Justin Thomas won this in 18 at 12-1. Ricky Fowler in 17, a much different Ricky Fowler back then, won it at 16-1. Adam Scott the year before in 2016 won it at 20-1. Chris Kirk, who we just mentioned, 2023 was 25-1. Sun Jae-in was 35. So shorter price guys, but you've had bombs win here too. In 2013, Michael Thompson, not a very long hitter, 300-1. Russell Henley, 300-1 in that playoff over Rory, Russell Knox, and Ryan Palmer. Patrick Harrington broke Daniel Berger's heart and won at 400-1 in 2015. I was on Berger, I think, for that one. And Keith Mitchell, who actually got a big price for me, was as high as 300-1 when he held off Ricky Fowler and Brooks Koepka in 2019. Last year, Eckroat was 110-1. Sepp Straka 3 years ago was 125. So it's usually, for the most part, it's been bombers, like bomb prices, not necessarily long off the tee, but bomb prices or really short prices that have won this event.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and say, for me, I didn't know what type of golfer I wanted this week. So I built 2 models. Mixed condition models, one of which that did factor in kind of like distance off of the tee and like kind of a little bit more off the tee heavy. Obviously, this is like super approach heavy model, but like both of the models are super approach heavy. That would be the base of all of them. But I made one that had a decent amount of driving stuff in it, and then I made one that was like team no drive, right? Mm-hmm. And basically, if you showed up in both, then you ended up on my card. And if you were super high in one or the other, considering I don't know exactly which type of golfer that I want in this one, really, with the way that this course has changed and how this has gone. So that those guys made the card too. So so I kind of have a diverse card of dudes that made both models, dudes that were super high in one or dudes that were super high in the other. And so I kind of have like a balanced portfolio, if you will, of golfers and types of golfers for this one. So we'll see kind of how it all plays out. Kelly, if you're watching us on YouTube, Kelly's got it pulled up right now. Shane Lowry, your short shot. Sung J M, Daniel Berger, Sepp Straka, Russell Henley, Taylor Pendrith are all under 30-1. Minwoo Lee is right at 30, and then everybody else is 35-1 or longer, including Kurt Kitayama, Denny McCarthy, Davis Thompson, Keith Mitchell, Benny On, Ben Griffin, Jordan Spieth way out at 45-1. JJ Spawn, 45-1, Cam Young, 45-1, and so on and so forth. So you can kind of see how this goes as far as the odds board as well, where, the betting favorite, Shane Lowry, and certainly if you're picking the air quote class player of the field, it would certainly be Shane Lowry, but we're used to paying, 35. We're used to getting 35-ish on Shane Lowry and 40-ish on Shane Lowry in some of these tournaments, and maybe even longer whenever it's a star-studded field. So interesting if you can swallow the 20-1 on Shane Lowry. So without further ado, Wes, kick us off here and let us know what ended up making your card this week.
Yeah, with Lowry, by the way, very much a form guy, fourth, fifth, and second, respectively, the last 3 years. Remember, he was leading, and then the rain came, and he got caught in it, and Sepp Straka ended up winning that event by 1.
Oh, so, I remember.
Yes,
me too.
I had Lowry. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
The rain came at like the worst time, right at 18, because I think Sepp was a group or two ahead, so he had finished. But, Lowry done everything but win here. And another guy that's had a lot of success here that's done everything but win, in fact, has lost a playoff here. And I got a good price. It's not as good anymore. And it wasn't as good anyway, even when I got it was at 30-1. Daniel Berger, and I said it a few weeks ago on this pod when he kind of showed a little bit on the West Coast. I said, I'm probably going to bet him at every Florida event. I'm going to bet him at the Cognizant. I'm going to bet him at the Players. I'm going to bet him at Bay Hill. I'm going to bet him at the Valspar because I think a win is really coming for this guy. You remember he had that back injury, of course, where he was out for 18 months in 2022, 2023. had to really show out in the last event of the season at the RSM just to keep his playing privileges. But now he's at number 53 now in the official world golf rankings. And why that's significant here as we get closer to Augusta, if you can get into that top 50, you get a Masters invitation, whether you are already exempted or not. That exempts you for being in the top 50. I believe that is after the Players or maybe after the Valspar. It's near the end of March, where you got to be in that top 50, and this is a good place for Berger. He's got a couple other top fives here. So Daniel Berger, 30-1, and then another guy who I think is pretty motivated to live in Florida, considering he lives in Florida and is a Florida Gator, but's never won in his home state, even though he's won twice in the last calendar year. Billy Horschel at 55-1, who really didn't show up on a lot of the models. I'm kind of going with an instinct here because Billy Horschel, if you've been watching the TGL on Mondays and Tuesdays, he's on, I believe, the Atlanta Drive team, I think, with Justin Thomas and Cantlay. And he's, real motivated, great personality and, all into it. His kids are there. His whole family's there. So I think maybe that's putting him in a good place of mind. He's also looking to make that Ryder Cup for the first time. Ninth year last year, was the first round leader the 2 years before in 2023. 3 top 10s in his last 8 appearances here. So Billy Horschel, I got it 55-1. And then another guy, if you remember, he actually came close to winning here in 2023. He was in contention when all of us had Kirk and Cole. Well, not all of us had Kirk. Kelly did, but I wish I did. We were on the other side, Matt and I. But another guy that was very much in that mix was one Ryan Gerard. And I got him at 75-1. He was 4th in this event. Got that special temporary membership on the PGA Tour. Couldn't keep his card, so he had to go back to the Corn Ferry. Did win last summer, so that got his spot back on tour. He's got 2 straight top 20s at the Farmers and at the Mexico Open. He also has a win on this course. And I had to look around and dig deep on this. This was back in 2015, a junior golf event called the Polo Junior Classic. And he won on this course, Ryan Gerard. So, maybe
there with a camera.
Yes, the Polo Junior Classic. I think it was the AJGA event. So, as a junior golfer, he won on this course. So, another guy that won on this course I'll have later that did not win this event, but did win on this course. But Ryan Gerard, 75-1. A guy that the models don't like, and I'm just going with my gut here, and it's going to look bad when he misses the cut. Christian Bezuidenhout at 80-1. His ball striking's terrible. Absolutely terrible right now. But his short game is money when he putts and when he's around the green. And that's where I think if this is a grinder event, I think this is going to favor this guy, even with very poor ball striking. 3-time DP Tour, World Tour winner, 7th at the Arnold Palmer a couple years ago, 9th at the Valspar last year, a couple top 13s at the Players. So clearly he likes the Bermuda and likes Florida and has played well here. So Bezuidenhout at 80-1, that's dropped, I think, a little bit. Another guy right around 80-1-ish as well, who makes a lot of his money scrambling because he's number 1 on the PGA Tour for scrambling. Top 20 for total strokes gained, actually, is Bud Cauley, who also was away from the PGA Tour. He had that car accident in 2018 and then missed about 3 years. I came back, I think, last year, late 2023, due to various injuries. 21st, 30th, 25th, 34th on his last 4 starts, so nothing, really stand out about that, but it just shows a consistency of playing better golf. So Bud Cauley around 80-1. And then speaking of Eric Cole, he got posted down at Circa Sports this morning at 95-1. And he is not in the form that he was when Matt and I were on him a couple years ago. But he was top 5 earlier this year at Waialae at the Sony Open, 13th the year prior. I mentioned Waialae. Very nice correlation hosting the Sony Open, strong correlation with PGA National. He didn't play very well. When I talk about the form, he didn't play well at Torrey Pines. That's not a course really for Eric Cole. He's not a guy that really gets it out there off the tee, and that's a big boy course at Torrey, 7,700 yards. Now he's back in Florida on the Bermuda. Very used to play, has played this course a lot, has caddied this course a lot. His buddy Sam Saunders, Arnold Palmer's grandson, used to caddy for him before Eric got on the tour. And so he's used to being around this area. So I thought that was kind of a big number. So it's worth, I think, a little bit of a flyer. And then 2 guys at 110-1. 2 bombs. Had to have a couple triple-digit ones because they've worked out so far this year. I spoke at the Sony Open earlier, how I got a little bit lucky with Nick Taylor with that chip in. on 18 from about 50 feet for Eagle to get himself in the playoff. Well, who was the guy he defeated in that playoff? It was one Nico Echeverria, who I also did have to monetize and hedge out on with Taylor, thinking, hey, I'm lucky to be in the playoff. Echeverria should probably win this thing, and he didn't. Two-time winner now on the PGA Tour. Won the Zozo in Japan last fall, was runner-up at the season ender at the RSM in November. So if that Waialae correlation works, I think Nico Echeverria can play well. And then another guy that's a local here that does have a win on this course. It was back in 2015, so it's not recent. It was at the then-known Web.com Q School, which is now the Korn Ferry Tour, and he won it by 7 strokes. I was on a Svensson last week. Matt Brown and I were both on him. Jesper, who had a nice event, didn't really contend, but had a nice showing. I'm on a different Svensson this week, this time a Canadian Svensson, and that's Adam Svensson, who in 2022 was 9th at this event. Later that year, he won his one PGA Tour event, by the way, at the RSM Classic, and I think he's just considered a horse for the course here. So kind of went a little bit all over the place. Didn't go total stats, went a little bit stat model, and then went a little bit gut this week for the Cognizant Classic in the Palm Beaches.
If I know Kelly Bidlin, and I think I do, I probably should get the horn ready, is my guess. I should probably get the horn ready.
Yeah, get it ready. If you know where I'm going. I bet him every damn year, buddy.
I'm gonna assume that I should probably get the horn ready because if there's one guy that I know that my friend Kelly Bidlin loves, it is one Daniel Berger. So I'm just I'm curious. Is he also on your card?
Oh yeah, fire it up.
All right. Pod play. There we go. Pod play on Berger. I did not get 30-1. Wes, where the hell did you get 30-1? I got 28, and I thought I was stealing out there. Boyd here in town posted 28. I was like, oh, look at Boyd going out there.
I got 25. I fell asleep at the wheel. I had it written down on my list of bets to make, Matt, since Sunday, and I just didn't get to it.
And you let it slip
because I was waiting for a damn passport for 3 hours yesterday.
What are you doing?
Another story for another day.
But yes, Berger, a pod play for us here because that just, I mean, again, for me, Kelly, you can say it. I'm saying, like I said, I ran 2 different types of models. Dude's like off the tee stuff, not so much off the tee stuff. He's inside the top 6 in both of them. So if you're inside the top, he's in just good form. That's all there's it's all there is to it. Like, I mean, is he going to go win this? I don't know, but this would be the time. It's a course he's very familiar with. It is a guy that if you're going to play, you play him in Florida. And look at this, Kelly. Like you said, I mean, look at this. I mean, look at the off the tee. Look at the approach.
That's
look
just
at the putting.
Too.
I mean, it's just
that's just at the Cognizant /Honda. Sorry, I had that tab pulled up.
Yeah.
Here's the recent Forbes stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so good. It's just so good for a guy that's been working his way back, right? And I mean, he lost off the tee, still T21 there at the Amex. I mean, it's just lots to really like about him. And so it was an auto play for me. For him. Yeah. Whenever I saw that he was literally 3rd in one model and 6th in the other. So doing it all.
Yeah, it was one of those. I knew the models were going to tell me he was going to be high anyways, but I was probably going to be betting him regardless. Just circling back to the course history stuff, just because there are a lot of tournaments. I don't know who factors that in the most of the 3 of us. I would guess Wes probably does usually just across the course of a season. But there's a lot of tournaments where I feel like I ignore a lot of it and focus way more on recent form. This tournament is always interesting just because of all the guys that live right there, right? So it's not even that just PGA National is none of their home courses. Like, they are playing at much nicer courses in the surrounding area. But the amount of charity events and PGA events that they get drawn to play this course, that they get all these guys that live in the area get a good look at. So I know Wes ran through a lot of guys that are at that level that kind of live right around here. But then you go to guys like Brooks Koepka and Daniel Berger, who were just basically auto plays for me at this tournament every year, because it goes a step further when you're basically born and raised in the area and you played all those junior tournaments on this course like you were talking about, Wes. Like these guys Berger's played this course thousands and thousands of times. So it's one of those, every year when it was Berger or Brooks, it's on the card for me. They're class enough players. And yes, Berger went through the injuries here the past couple years, but like you said, Matt, he's back in form now and ready to be bet. I'll be honest, I felt like I'm paying a little bit of a tax for him this week, just with all the history baked in. I was hoping to get a longer number. I was hoping he'd be in the 30s, a 30 like Wes grabbed. But
I mean, dude, if you look though, comparatively to everybody in this field, with it not being like the greatest of fields, if you weight at all recent form, I mean, he is right there. It's like him and Lowry. I mean, like he is right there. So I mean. I don't know if we're paying a tax or not.
This is my last 24. He's number 2 right there. I mean, yeah. So, you want me to roll through mine, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Berger's on there. Played the outright on him, and just kind of covering with top fives. That's for sure. This week. So Berger on my outright card 25. The one I gravitate. Like you were talking about, I'm glad you brought it up, Matt, at the beginning. The card I ended up with was not the card I was expecting to have, and I'm hoping that one of you guys threw out a long shot that I get attracted to, because I couldn't get myself away from Shane Lowry, Daniel Berger, and Sepp Straka. I couldn't. I almost feel like Shane. We said it a couple weeks ago, Matt. I still feel like he's the best player in this tournament. I feel like we're still getting a bit of a good price, a bit of a discount on him in this field. I expected him to be in the teens, and I know some shops he is, but that's where I really thought he'd play. Last 24 rounds, 4th on approach, 9th in par 4 scoring, which I think is really important here too. 9th in total driving. Yes, the scrambling numbers are a bit of a concern here. But man, the history is incredible. T4, T5, second, just the last 3 years alone. He's never missed a cut here. He's a guy I trust a lot. I like betting a lot, but I trust a lot at this course. So outright on him. I will say I do have 2 top 20s. Again, even that not out of design. With all the water on this course, I usually mainly just stick to kind of outright plays. Again, a lot of these scores can swing wildly on that final day based off of what is one guy going low and then your guy putting a couple in the water, and it can just crater in some of the placement markets. So I would be a little bit careful with that this week. So Shane Lowry, Daniel Berger outrights, and then Sepp Straka. I saw a 28-1 on him. Man, I think Sepp's really rounding into a great player. And he is, we've seen it already this year. Yeah, he missed the cut last week, but then it's 15th at Phoenix, T7 at Pebble, won the Amex. I mean, he's had a hell of a season already. I think you guys were on him way before I even was over the past couple years. But he's had a lot of success here. Missed cut last year, but T5 won the year before that, T33, T27. And as far as form goes, 12th on approach, 12th off the tee, 18th good drive, 17th in bogey avoidance, 5th in green and regulations, which actually did factor in this week with the pins in kind of tricky placement, even though they are bigger greens. I actually factored that in. That's a stat I usually don't look at as much. But he was up there for all. I love Sepp's game. As long as he doesn't get in trouble here, I think he's got a really good shot. So 28-1, I thought he was a good bet. And then, man, the last guy on my outright card, I'm going back to him because he surprisingly checked a lot of the boxes. It was Alex Smalley. I'm going right back. 56-1, a little bit better number in this week's field that you're getting. I think this field definitely a little bit stronger. It might be dangerous, but man, he was. I don't want to say he was really top 3, top 5 in any one specific stat category I was looking at, but man, was he blanket like top 25 across the board. And it was just enough for him. Like, this guy's game is in such a good place right now overall that I was fine going back to him here. And, the distance helps off the tee, right? So those were my outrights, 4 outrights, and then I played top 20 on another 2 Kelly Bidlin specials. Keith Mitchell, who's had a lot of success here before. Right. Cashmere Keith, go back to him. And then Gary Woodland, another guy, Delray Beach resident. I'm going to play a top 20 on him. I won't go outright this week. But another guy that's had a ton of success here. He's got 4 top 10s in his lifetime at this course. Lives right down the street. He's played here a bunch. If we're talking driving distance being important, he's number 1 in the field. 24th in bogey avoidance. I think kind of like with you with Eric Cole, Wes, Sure. Biggest concern I got with Gary Woodland if he starts spraying it off the tee.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're ruined and we're crushed right away. But we'll probably know that early on. So that is my whole card. Top 20s, Gary Woodland, Keith Mitchell, and then outrights, Shane Lowry, Daniel Berger, Sepp Straka, and Alex Smalley.
To your point on Alex Smalley on your play, number one, by the way, strokes gained off the tee last week in the Mexico Open for the entire event. Also was number one in scrambling. He had a horrible approach round on Sunday because he was on the periphery. He was like my insurance policy for Potgieter, and I think we were also all on Smalley. Mm-hmm. He was kind of the guy that was lurking. It's like, oh, man, he got within, I think, like 2 of the lead. But his approaches on Sunday just took him away from what was a really good event for him. He ends up T10, but probably deserved a lot better than that when you look at the numbers.
Yeah. It was a couple of different holes where it was just like, man, that was your shot.
He missed a couple easy putts in the final round too.
That was your chance. You didn't want to go and look at his. You didn't want to go to him or Toasties or Tosti, whatever. You didn't want to go look at their. They missed multiple 5-foot putts. Yeah. I mean, multiple 5-foot putts in their rounds, and I'm just like, bro.
But by the way, I don't.
Tournament's there for the taking. Go take it.
I don't want to spend too much time circling back to that, but I should have said this at the top. One of my biggest takeaways from that tournament last week, because we've talked about this guy, and I've bet him a ton over the past couple of years, Aaron Rai. He was awesome on that front nine in that final round, but, man, if you're going to be a winner and a guy that we consider, near the top tier of PGA Tour golfers, you win in a spot like that on Sunday, right? Like, that tournament down the stretch was a bunch of dudes that were just trying to survive. Yep. Nobody was out there to win it. Everybody was just trying not to lose it. And I was sitting there just waiting for Aaron Rai to take control of that tournament. Never did. And it's just, I think it's another question mark on Aaron Rai going forward.
Yeah, they tried to hand it to him.
Right. Yeah. Everybody did. They tried to hand it to him.
They tried to hand it to him, and he didn't want to go get it. Maybe he should have taken the other glove off. I don't know. If he'd taken the other glove off, maybe we would have something.
Is he still rocking double blacks this year?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I guess I actually haven't noticed, but yeah.
He's still rocking the double blacks, buddy.
It's like even Tommy Two Gloves Gainey won on the PGA Tour. Aaron Rai is too good of a player not to have a PGA Tour win.
Yeah.
Well, he does have the one though at the Wyndham, but he should win more.
He definitely should. All right, so we are all on Daniel Berger, and Wes, while you and I basically had the same card last week, I only have one other guy, and I did end up on Ryan Gerard as well. Ryan Gerard, in the less than driver model that I made, was 10th overall, and Ryan Gerard in the, hey, let's factor in off the tee and driver stuff, was 10th as well. So he was 10th overall in both of the different versions of the model that I made. You go in, you kind of dig into him a little bit more, and you can see like some decent results, and certainly some of the stuff that we're looking at. Third in this field in scrambling, if we believe that that's going to become something that we're, really going to have to lean on. If you look at the weighted strokes gained off the tee, if you like the strokes gained off the tee stuff, he's up there as well. So, I mean, this is all good stuff here for Ryan Gerard, and a guy that I did not expect, honestly, to be on, but Ryan Gerard, I am also on. So me and Wes share Berger and Gerard. Next, if we're talking about odds-wise, the next shortest, I jumped all the way to 64-1, and that's Michael Kim. Michael Kim, 12th in the one version, 9th in the other. So, again, a well-rounded guy, a guy that fits both of the models for me here. If you go in and you kind of say, like, okay, what is the stuff he's doing well? Certainly, if you look at the shorter-term type deal, I mean, bogey avoidance. He's not making a ton of bogeys. If you like the approach stuff, if you like the tee to green stuff, if you like all of that, I mean, this guy is a guy that continues to pop left and right in all of this stuff that we're looking for. And so, again, for me, a guy that I dug in a little bit more and wonder, like, wow, this is a lot higher than I would have expected to have seen him. But I think we are catching him at the right time, right? I mean, might be the best form we ever get with him.
Look,
and for a guy that's
tournaments, it's incredible.
And a guy that's 64-1, being able to get a guy like you said, look at Kelly. I mean, he's green across the board in 3 straight tournaments. That is unbelievable. The Farmers eats up a lot of people, so I mean, I'm not worried about that, right? That course just eats up.
And even at the Genesis, which was at Torrey Pines, where
Yeah.
You know, he's not a very long hitter. He's a good ball striker. Gains across the board at the Genesis in a signature event.
Well,
so
who cares about that if you did this, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So Michael Kim, 64-1 for me. Next, going down, jumps all the way to 100-1. And one thing that I think that I've found, and this actually could be an interesting discussion, guys, real quick as we go on this. Wes, do you find yourself, given how the game has changed a little bit? I mean, obviously you were on Pot Guider this past week. Are you finding yourself a little bit more inclined to take shots on dudes that don't have a ton of experience on the PGA Tour because, like, these guys are just so much better golfers now? Like, I look at the Korn Ferry, and if I see that they, like, tore up the Korn Ferry, I'm kind of okay putting them on my card, like on the PGA. And so I'm much more apt now. I think that these dudes are just progressing through the game with all the technology, with all of the stuff that's going on with how you can make your game better and get longer and increase, you know, club speed and ball speed and all this stuff like that. Like, I find myself much more apt to do that. Kelly, I don't know if you I know your card is made up more of tried and true guys here, but are you okay with putting dudes that are kind of new onto the card?
Sure. I mean, I think that's just part of how the PGA Tour's changed over the past few years, right? Yeah, with some of the top heavyweights leaving, I think that you got to be looking at some of the newer guys coming in.
So this is a guy that he's new, but he's not, but he's old, right? I mean, he's an old guy. He's an older dude. He's 34, but Kevin Roy.
I almost played him, actually.
Yeah. And
I almost played him last week. I feel
it's
like
100-1 on Kevin Roy. Again, a guy that qualified off the Korn Ferry this year. He has made all three. He did withdraw at the Farmers, but like the three events that he's finished, he has made 3 cuts. A guy that, again, good on approach, good on whatever. You can just kind of go down and see. And like, this is another guy that on the Korn Ferry was gaining total strokes just in almost every single tournament that he was in. And so it was a good profile for me once I went in and really started to weigh all of this stuff that we're looking at here. And the number also matched where he was popping in the model. So I took a shot on him here, Kevin Roy at 100-1. A guy that we played. So, Wes, this is my new Cam. Who your guy is?
Cameron Young.
Cam Young. So Mac Meisner is my Cam Young. So I'm gonna lose a Toyota Sentra on Mac Meisner before he ever wins or whatever. But like,
he was 5th in one of my models.
He's in both of these models. He is so friggin' high. Like he's 5th in like the one where I didn't weight anything that has to do with driving, and then he's 6th in the one where I did weight the stuff with driving. And I don't get it because you go in and you look at this, Kelly, and like you see where all of this stuff is like kind of falling apart for him. But then you look further back, like, and I think maybe it's just some of that stuff. I think the recent form certainly is not great for him, but I think it's creeping in some of that form from behind, from back then. But man, I don't know. The model loved him. The model was just popping all over the place. It kind of disgusted me to put a ticket in yet again, but he's my Cam Young. So I'll go ahead and just lose a Sentra on this guy before I finally quit him, I guess, like when it's all said and done. So Mac Meisner, and the final guy on my card, Andrew Putnam. Andrew Putnam he did not, obviously, if y'all know about anything about Andrew Putnam, did not pop at all in the off the tee model. Like that was where he was no good. But he was 3rd overall in the one where I didn't factor in stuff off the tee all that much. And so this was the dude that didn't come across on both models, but did really pop in one of the two. And so if he's 3rd overall, it actually means he's 2nd overall, because the guy who's number 1 in that model is Brian Campbell, but he only has 8 strokes gained round. So the sample size is tiny and is nothing. So really Putnam is 2nd overall in that model. Only 2nd to Lucas Glover, actually, in that model. So for me, Andrew Putnam, you can find, by the way, as of this recording, he's 175-1 at Caesars. Again, not like the greatest like thing in the whole wide world when we start comparing all these books, because I know money comes in different places, but We do know that Circa probably has a bit of a sharper clientele and does take at least a little bit bigger bets. He's 120 at Circa, and he's 175 at Caesars. So just, again, somebody put some money on Andrew Putnam somewhere along the way. Somebody liked him. And like I said, my model loved him. The one that didn't care about driving loved him. So Andrew Putnam is my final guy, coming in at 175 to 1. 2 head-to-heads. I played Lucas Glover over Brian Harmon, and I played Ben Griffin over J.J. Spawn. Ben Griffin popped in the models, but I'm not betting Ben Griffin outright anymore. I can't do it. Ben Griffin was about to become my Cam Young, and I can't do the shit anymore. So I'm not doing it, but I played him in a head-to-head against J.J. Spawn. And Lucas Glover, like I said, was actually number 1 because I'm throwing out Brian Campbell, who only has 8 rounds that registered. Lucas Glover first overall in one of my models. So Lucas Glover over Brian Harmon in the head-to-head market for me.
Yeah, this what was it with Glover? I saw that I was looking into him too. I was surprised he didn't pop higher for me, but then back-to-back events where he's lost strokes on approach, which is just kind of shocking for Glover.
Yeah. Kind of wacky for him. I think that normalizes. Like, I'm not sure.
Probably. I mean, like, this guy's hit. Yeah. How many times in his life has he hit a 7-iron?
Yeah. So,
only a bajillion times. 2 tournaments is probably not enough for me to take much out of. I think after listening to all this, I'm going to join you on Michael Kim. These just recent numbers are ridiculous. What he's doing, man.
Yeah.
T13,
and by the way, like that number,
across
Kelly, unfortunately to the people listening, the 64 is at Circa. He's a lot. He's shorter everywhere else, but even at 50.
Yeah, 50 at DraftKings.
Even at 50, the stat profile is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive. So, I think 50 is still playable when it comes down to it. So, Michael Kim on there for me. Guys, a couple of different things, a couple of different discussions before we close things out. One and done this week. How popular is Lowry going to be? Are you saving Lowry for anything else, or is this the week to go ahead and use him? What about Berger this week? You're getting him in good form, you're getting him in Florida, and you're getting him against a field that, he could probably beat, right? What are we doing in one and done this week? Where are we going?
I'm going to play one of those two, but I thought the same thing because they're going to be very, very popular. I actually, my guess would be Berger's the most popular this week. That would be my guess. But I don't know. I think I'm gonna use one of the two, Matt. Though, and honestly, I'd hate to say it, probably Berger, just because more of possible injury concerns later in the season or something like that.
He's in form. Lowry, you could play overseas if you wanted to, whatever.
I was going to say at Royal Portrush is actually where the Open is this year, and we know who won the last Claret Jug there. That was Shane Lowry over Tommy Fleetwood in that pouring rainstorm. So maybe you save him for over there, but God, 4th, 5th, and 2nd the last 3 years, I think.
I know. That's what I'm saying. I'm like, God, I don't want to join the crowd, but it's like, where am I going to really? If I'm saving him only for one other tournament all year, then I probably should just play him here.
And that's this whole discussion though, Matt, too, was I didn't plan on ending up on this many guys near the top of the board, but it's just once you started breaking down numbers and history and everything here, I'm like, there is such a separation for where I have these guys rated at compared to so many of the others in the field. It's just it was a pretty wide gap, but yeah, I think I'm going to use one of those two. Probably going to be Berger. Probably Berger.
Wes, what's your thought?
Oh, we lost Matt Brown.
Yeah. Sorry. I probably, it would maybe be Lowry or Henley. For me. Now Henley, likes the Bermuda, and there's plenty of Bermuda left on the course, so maybe you could use Henley for one of those Wyndhams or something like that, or TPC Southwind in Memphis. So probably it would be down to Lowry or Henley. I'll go ahead with Lowry. I know there's Royal Portrush, like I mentioned, but it's hard to win majors, even at a place you won before. So it's is that really going to happen? I guess it could, but I think this is probably the best Lowry spot. Because Berger, keep in mind, you still got the Valspar you might not use him at the Players because that's the best field of the year, but I think he plays well there. So you got maybe a couple places in Florida, or maybe like Colonial or RBC Heritage that are shorter ball striker courses that he could fare well. So
tracks.
So there's some other good places I think to use Daniel Berger.
Yeah, and my other thought too is just he might be a dude that, as long as he's playing well, he might just play more tournaments than Lowry as well. So we might just have more chances to play him, right? Like, I mean, because he took so much time off, and who knows how much income he lost along the way because of all of that and whatever. And it's kind of like he just might play more than Lowry too, So
yeah, I guess the biggest question for me with him is, are we near his peak? Like, where are we at? Is this trajectory still going up for Berger? Or are we kind of hit the peak and who knows, it could just come back down? Yeah. I don't know.
It'll be one of the two for me, most likely.
And look, I don't feel comfortable. Honestly, I don't really feel all that comfortable using either of these guys here, just again because of the crazy high variance of what this tournament is. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have a bad Friday, and all of a sudden you're missing a cut.
Yeah, it's true. One and done's going to be interesting this week as to how people go about approaching that. So we got a question on the Twitter machine that I want to answer before we get out of here, and talking about like when we mentioned monetizing tickets. And so I wanted to address that here. So look, this is something where it certainly helps the bigger the number that is attached to the golfer that you have. If you can get into a situation where he's leading a tournament or is really close to a tournament, on late on Saturday and certainly going into Sunday. And so, Kelly, we just talked about with Wes, the cleanest hedge there is on the face of the planet. And I'm going to phrase this and frame this for people rest of country, because we have the cleanest hedge because you can bet the no price here in Vegas. It is the greatest thing that Circa has ever, it's the greatest advantage to living in Vegas, being a golf bettor, is that Circa puts up no prices. So I will say that. I understand that's not available to most people out there. So the cleanest hedge there obviously is if you can get down to just two golfers that you know for sure it's going to be between those two guys. I mean, what you'd like is their separation from the field. They're 4 or 5 strokes up on the next closest people or whatever, and then you could just bet that other golfer. Obviously, that's the cleanest hedge when it comes to all that. The next cleanest hedge is, you have to kind of get in game, right? Like you have to get in, you kind of have to be monitoring that Sunday round and try to get in on one of the other guys that's competing. And then the other thing is, like, depending on how long the ticket is for you and how much you're going to win and how much you're willing to take off of that potential win from that long ticket, is you can bet 2 or 3 guys as well. Now, that's not like the greatest, because if that means the field is that close together, then maybe that means someone else could come up and win that as well. But maybe you find yourself in a situation where there is some separation between maybe the top 3 or 4 guys and then the rest of the field. And, that cuts into your potential winnings a whole bunch as well. But, again, if you're holding 100 to 1 ticket, you still should be able to monetize it, even if there is 2 or 3 different guys that might be able to win the tournament. But the guys, it's a good question, because we do often mention it, Kelly, and we don't often explain it.
Yeah, no, it's good. Look, I think I do think there's a problem in the sports betting world right now of just the cash out option and everybody just trying to get in and get out with something made as easily and quickly as they can. I feel like I get a lot of those questions on Twitter, and it's, Gil says it all the time, and I think it's a good way to put it when it comes to hedging, just as an overall premise. If there's nothing that's changed from when you made the bet, why are you rushing to get off the bet when you've got better odds? You have better odds than what the current odds would be. I think that holds true. I think when it comes to golf, we talked about it. I think you want to try to lock in profit if you're doing this long term, week to week, like we are. But honestly, Matt, like those early examples you described is really the only time I'm doing it. There's got to be 2 guys. It's got to be my guy, somebody else. I've either that clean overnight no price I can grab at Circle, like you said, or if we're talking live betting, it's got to be 2 guys that are clear of the field, and I can easily just grab a piece of the other guy and don't have to worry about any trailers, or we're going to a playoff. Honestly,
timing is
playoff is. Yeah, it is. And Wes, like, this is like playoff, like what you were in last weekend. Yeah, sure. Auto hedge for me. I'm hedging right away in that spot. But man, I think what some of the dicier conversations are, okay, you're holding a 40 to 1 ticket. You got a 4-man playoff. What are you doing with it? Like I'm letting that ride usually for a hole or two and see if it gets to less guys. Like it just takes too much off the ticket to try to spread it all around, in my opinion. Like you said, you're still going to come out with something, and if that's what you're looking to do, that's your choice. I'm usually just going to ride that ticket if I'm in that situation.
And keep the books open, okay, multiple shops, because you get the updated price. Sometimes that's even ahead of the telecast, depending on what kind of delay that you have. Like, I'll use an example. The Amex with Sepp Straka, like, you doing anything with it? I'm like, I'm going to wait. I want to wait and see how he starts. And he started out okay. I think he had a couple little shaky holes there, but he was pretty much almost odds on through the entire deal. So it's like, if I get a guy that's like a -$4 favorite and he's looking promising, I'm probably not going to get. So you want to wait a little bit. And that's what I ended up doing, just because I wasn't watching the beginning of the round on Sunday. I was watching something else. But, you got to just time it, because I didn't feel confident about Potgieter going into the final round. I was like, man, I feel like he blew his chance. And he kind of let the field back in on Saturday after he had that 61 on Friday. So, you want to just time it instead of just getting out immediately. So sometimes it's hard not to panic is better, where it's like, oh my God, my guy's not going to hang on here. So, a lot of it is just timing and when you get involved.
Especially when shots are happening quick and odds are changing. Yeah, it's not. None of this is easy. For sure, none of it's easy. And I do think, just bringing up the opposite situation that we talk about a lot on shows and on this pod, probably more than it actually ends up playing out. But, beginning of a tournament, right? We've brought it up a bunch in the past of, hey, you can always jump on live at a guy in first round or the beginning of second round. If those odds were a little too short, we say this a lot about Scheffler, it feels like, right? If he starts off slow, look for a better number in tournament. And there's no shame circling a guy that you want to bet and going into a tournament, not having a bet on him, just hoping you can get in at a price that you felt was more appropriate later in the tournament.
Yeah, and the one thing also to keep in mind is with all of the rest of the country books, there's live top fives, live top tens, things like that are available along the way. You can probably still, if you're somewhat hesitant, you want to try to make your money back. Like, there's ways that you can kind of manipulate those markets to get something with your ticket as well. And, there's Sunday matchups, like you can go in and do stuff like that, so there's other ways that you can go about it. It is certainly tricky. The bigger your ticket, the easier it is to do. So, hopefully whenever we're talking about kind of monetize a ticket, I'm really hoping it's one of my dudes that's 80-1 or whatever, 100-1, because I'm okay shaving some profit off of that. That's perfectly fine with me. It's much, much harder. Daniel Berger is going to be hard to monetize unless he gets into a playoff. You know what I'm saying? Unless it's a 2-horse race coming down to hole 18, it's just he's going to be tough to monetize at 28-1.
I mean, if we're just being honest, this situation did just come up for us too recently, Matt, with Ludwig. And you and I both handled it a little bit differently, and me being a little bit more on tilt on this season had factored into that, where I was like, screw it, no, I'm winning this damn ticket, or I'm retiring from golf betting this year.
I love that. Yes, that's absolutely perfect. He wouldn't have really retired, guys. Don't. Kelly's here for the long haul. Don't worry. Guys, this podcast, absolutely free. And if you're watching on video, also this channel, absolutely free. So please go in, hit that subscribe button on both sides, whether it's YouTube, whether it's your podcast of choice. If you're on YouTube, if you get the thumbs up, that's great. If you give us some comments in there, that kind of helps the algorithm understand that this is something that you're into. So appreciate all of that. And if you're over on the podcast side, of course, subscribe, rate, review, as you hear on every single one of your podcasts. But it really does help us. It really does help the podcast grow and stuff like that. So thanks for all the support out there for Long Shots, for Wes, for Kelly. I'm Matt. Good luck on all your Cognizant bets.